I always thought Sarah and I had a solid relationship. We'd been married for 5 years, and while we had our ups and downs, I believed we could weather any storm together. She was beautiful, intelligent, and had a sharp sense of humor that made even the toughest days bearable. But like all good stories, things began to take a turn that I never saw coming. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Sarah started spending more time on her phone, often texting late into the night while I was trying to get some sleep. At first, I brushed it off as her catching up with friends. After all, I had my own late-night work sessions, so who was I to judge? But the signs kept piling up. She became more secretive, her laughter often drifting from her phone, and she'd quickly silence it if I walked into the room. I found myself wondering if I was just being paranoid. But then came the night that shattered my comfortable delusions. I had come home early from work, planning a surprise dinner for Sarah. I wanted to show her how much I appreciated her, and perhaps reignite that spark we once had. As I walked through the front door, I noticed that the living room was dark. The lights were off and a strange silence hung in the air. I called out her name, but there was no answer. Curiosity piqued, I made my way to our bedroom. As I approached, I heard the unmistakable sound of muffled laughter. My heart sank. I paused outside the door, instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I pushed the door open and walked in. What I saw turned my world upside down. There in our bed was Sarah, lounging casually with her phone in hand. She was laughing, but not at anything I had said. The moment she saw me, her laughter halted. Her expression shifted from amusement to shock, and my heart raced as I took in the scene. I glanced at her phone, where a video call was still open with a man I didn't recognize. I felt my stomach churn. "Who the hell is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, tension hanging heavily in the air. "Brian," she stammered, scrambling to turn off the call. "He's just a friend. It didn't mean anything." Just a friend. My heart ached at the words, a whirlwind of emotions flooding through me: betrayal, disbelief, anger. I confronted her about the late-night texts, the laughter, the secrecy. She attempted to brush it off, claiming it was innocent banter and that I was overreacting. The excuses flowed like water, but her eyes betrayed her guilt. Her denial felt like a punch to the gut, and I could feel the walls closing in around me. I needed answers, not excuses. I demanded to see her messages, her calls, anything to prove her innocence. She hesitated, the flicker of fear in her eyes telling me all I needed to know. As she reluctantly handed over her phone, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Scrolling through her messages, I found countless exchanges filled with flirtation and an openness that should have been reserved for me. The realization hit me like a freight train. My wife was cheating on me. I was blindsided. The woman I loved was betraying me, and it felt like my whole world had crumbled. How could she say it didn't mean anything when she was so deeply involved in this web of lies? My heart was racing, my thoughts spiraling out of control. I felt anger boil within me, but more than that, I felt lost. The confrontation was raw, filled with accusations and her tearful denials. I felt a mix of rage and heartache that I had never experienced before. It was like a fire consuming me from the inside out. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel the pain she had caused me. But instead, I stood there, dumbfounded, as she tried to justify her actions. In that moment, it became clear that this was not just a mistake. This was a deliberate choice she had made, and it cut deeper than I ever imagined. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to hold on to the woman I thought I married, but the truth was, she was slipping away and I was left standing in the wreckage of our lives. In the days that followed, I felt like a ghost in my own home. Every corner reminded me of the life we built together, the laughter, the dreams, now tainted by her betrayal. I had to figure out how to move forward from this point, but it felt like I was standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure of what lay below. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to do something, anything, to reclaim my sense of control. The thought of revenge began to creep into my mind, not just for the sake of hurting her back, but to reclaim my dignity. As I processed the emotional turmoil, I knew I had to make a choice. Would I confront her and fight for our marriage, or was it time to cut my losses? The journey to uncover the truth had just begun, and I was determined to find out how deep the deception ran. The days after I discovered Sarah's betrayal felt like they dragged on for an eternity. I was a prisoner in my own mind, replaying every moment we had shared together, every laugh, every intimate conversation. Doubt seeped into every corner of my memories. How had I not seen the signs? I was convinced I was a decent husband, attentive and loving, yet here I was, blindsided by the very person I trusted the most. As I tried to regain my footing, I found myself obsessively replaying the moments leading up to that fateful night. I thought back to the times she'd come home late, the meetings she had with friends, the way her phone would buzz incessantly during dinner. I can't believe I had been so naive. Her excuses now felt like a punchline to a cruel joke that I had unwittingly become a part of. The anger I felt was like a slow burn, simmering just beneath the surface. It wasn't just anger, though. It was a potent mix of humiliation and betrayal. I was angry at Sarah for lying to me, but I was equally furious with myself for being so oblivious. How could I have missed her changing behavior? I started questioning everything about our marriage. What was real? What was just an illusion constructed from her lies? In the midst of this emotional chaos, my mind began to turn to thoughts of revenge. I'd heard that the best way to regain power in a situation like this was to take control of your own narrative. I didn't want to be the victim in this story. I wanted to flip the script, to show Sarah that I wouldn't just sit back and let her betray me without consequences. After a lot of sleepless nights and emotional turmoil, I came up with a plan. If Sarah was sending encrypted messages to this guy, then I needed to find out how deep this affair ran. I decided to dive into the digital world she had been hiding from me. With her phone still in my possession, I started exploring her texts and social media. It was time to dig deeper. The first thing I did was check her encrypted messaging app. I could feel my heart race as I navigated through the app, trying to piece together the puzzle. I found exchanges filled with playful banter, flirtatious comments, and even intimate plans. They had been talking about meeting up in secret places, planning little getaways, and sharing personal jokes that felt like a knife to my gut. As I read through their messages, I felt my blood boil. This guy, Brian, was clearly more than just a friend. He was someone who had stepped into my shoes, and I envisioned him whispering sweet nothings into my wife's ear while I was oblivious to their affair. How could she trivialize what they had? I stumbled upon a message that made my heart drop. It was a plan for a secret rendezvous, a weekend getaway at a cabin in the mountains, just the two of them. I could hardly breathe. I felt sick to my stomach, the betrayal hitting me like a freight train. Here they were, planning a romantic escape while I sat at home, wondering where I had gone wrong. But instead of sinking deeper into despair, it ignited a fire within me. I was done playing the victim. I couldn't let Sarah get away with this. She had made her choice, and now I was going to make mine. I started to think about how I could confront them, how I could expose Sarah's lies not just to her, but to the world she had crafted around her betrayal. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized I knew everything. The next few days were a blur of planning and plotting. I gathered evidence, documenting their conversations and building my case against her. I wanted to confront her with undeniable proof, to watch her squirm under the weight of her own lies. I was done with her excuses and her attempts to downplay the situation. I wanted her to feel the pain and humiliation I felt when I discovered her betrayal. I decided that a confrontation at their secret getaway would be most impactful. I began planning the trip to the cabin, thinking of how I would show up unannounced, catching them in the act. I wanted to turn the tables on her, to take back control of my life. It felt liberating to finally have a plan, but I also knew that it could backfire. In the back of my mind, I understood that revenge might not solve everything. It might not fix the hurt or the broken trust, but I had reached a point where I needed to take action. I needed a catharsis, an outlet for the pain she had inflicted on me. As I prepared for the confrontation, a part of me wondered if there was a way to salvage our marriage, but that hope felt increasingly elusive. Could I really forgive her? Did I even want to? I didn't know the answers, but I knew that whatever happened next, I would reclaim my dignity. The day of the planned confrontation arrived, and I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I packed my bag, making sure to include the evidence I had collected. Driving to the cabin felt surreal. I was about to unearth the truth, to expose Sarah for who she really was. I had no idea how this would end, but I was ready for whatever lay ahead. With each passing mile, my heart raced faster. I was about to confront the woman I loved, the woman who had betrayed me. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I was determined to make her face the consequences of her actions, and I wouldn't back down. As I pulled into the cabin's driveway, I took a deep breath and steadied my resolve. I was ready to unveil the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I stepped out of my car, heart pounding, knowing that this was a moment that would change everything. As I stepped out of my car, the cool mountain air hit me, a stark contrast to the boiling anger and anxiety that churned inside. The cabin loomed ahead, nestled among the trees like a hidden secret, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I took one last moment to gather my thoughts, clutching my phone tightly, my evidence, my lifeline. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming my life and confronting the betrayal that had shattered my world. I approached the cabin, the wooden structure looking innocent enough, but I knew better. I had no idea what I would find inside, but I was determined to confront Sarah and Brian. I walked up to the door and knocked, my heart racing with anticipation. There was silence on the other side, and for a moment I thought about turning back. This was it, the point of no return, but deep down I knew I had to do this. Then I heard laughter. Brian's voice cut through the silence and my stomach twisted. It was the same jovial tone that had made Sarah giggle in the past. Their laughter echoed inside, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I knocked harder this time, feeling the weight of my emotions boiling over. I needed them to know I wasn't going away. The door swung open, and there stood Sarah, looking utterly shocked. She was dressed casually, her hair tousled, and I could see that she hadn't expected to see me. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and I could sense the gears turning in her mind as she tried to process my presence. "James, what are you doing here?" she stammered, the facade of innocence breaking before my eyes. I stepped past her, entering the cabin with a purpose. "I know everything, Sarah. I know about Brian." Her face paled, and I could see the panic rising within her. "What are you talking about? You have to leave. This isn't what it looks like." But I wasn't having any of it. I pulled out my phone, ready to confront her with the evidence I had gathered. "Don't even try to deny it. I found your messages, the plans for this weekend, the getaway. I know you've been lying to me." "James, please," she said, her voice trembling. "It was a mistake. We weren't going to do anything. I swear it meant nothing." "Nothing." I shot back, my anger flaring. "You're lying to my face, Sarah. I can't believe you'd stand there and pretend like this is all okay. You're cheating on me, and then you say it means nothing. How could you do this?" Brian stepped into the room, clearly sensing the tension. "What's going on?" he asked, his casual demeanor quickly shifting to concern. "Who is this?" "This is my husband," Sarah said, her voice rising slightly. "James, he didn't do anything. You need to leave." "Didn't do anything." I spat, pointing my phone at Brian. "You think I'm just going to walk away from this? You've been texting my wife, planning weekends together. How can you act like you're innocent here?" Brian opened his mouth to respond, but I wasn't interested in his excuses. I turned back to Sarah, demanding answers. "How long has this been going on? How could you betray me like this?" Her eyes darted nervously, and I could see the guilt etched across her face. "It started a few months ago," she admitted, her voice quiet. "But it was just a fling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was confused, and I didn't want to hurt you." "That's a pathetic excuse, Sarah," I shot back. "You think it's just a fling? You're playing with people's hearts here. How could you throw away everything we built together?" The confrontation spiraled into chaos. Sarah began to cry, pleading for my understanding, while Brian awkwardly stood by, trying to defuse the situation. I felt like I was losing control, my emotions swirling around me like a storm. I was furious, betrayed, and heartbroken all at once. I couldn't let this continue. "I want you to leave, Brian. Just go. This is between me and Sarah." Brian hesitated for a moment, clearly reluctant, but when he saw the anger on my face, he nodded and backed away. "Fine, I'll leave, but Sarah, think about what you're doing." He shot me a glare before exiting the cabin, leaving just the two of us. Once the door closed, the tension in the room thickened. I could see Sarah desperately trying to compose herself, but the tears kept falling. James, please, it was a mistake. I love you. I never wanted it to go this far. Love. I scoffed, shaking my head. What kind of love leads to betrayal? You think I can just forget what you've done? What you've planned behind my back? I was lonely. You've been so distant lately, always working late, and I felt like I was losing. I thought I could fill that void, she said, her voice breaking. But I never wanted to hurt you. Then why didn't you talk to me? I yelled, frustration spilling over. You could have come to me instead of running to another man. I would have listened. I would have tried to fix things. Sarah stepped closer, her hands shaking as she reached out to touch me. I'm sorry, I messed up. I thought I could handle it, but I couldn't. Please give me another chance. I'll do anything. Anything. I echoed, my voice dripping with skepticism. What makes you think I can trust you again? You destroyed that trust the moment you chose to cheat on me. As the weight of her betrayal settled heavily on my shoulders, I could feel my heart breaking further. I had loved her so truly, given her everything, and now she was standing in front of me asking for forgiveness. But could I really forgive her? The silence hung between us, thick with unspoken words and raw emotions. I desperately wanted to hold onto the love we once had, but the betrayal was like a gaping wound, and I wasn't sure if it could ever heal. James, please, she pleaded softly, her voice laced with desperation. I'll make it right. I'll cut ties with Brian, I promise. Just give me a chance to prove I'm still the woman you fell in love with. I looked into her eyes, searching for the truth, but all I saw was the deep well of hurt. I realized that I had a decision to make, not just about her but about my own future. Did I want to fight for a love that had so quickly turned into betrayal? I didn't have the answer yet, but I could feel the darkness closing in around me. Whatever happened next would define our relationship, and I had to tread carefully. The confrontation had unveiled the ugly truth, but it had also brought me to a crossroads. It was time for me to decide how I would move forward from this moment. The tension in the cabin was suffocating, a thick blanket of emotions that made it hard to breathe. Sarah stood before me, desperate and pleading, her tears making it difficult to separate my feelings of love from the fresh wounds of betrayal. The woman I had built a life with was now a stranger, someone who had thrown away our shared future for a fleeting thrill. James, please, she said again, her voice shaking with emotion. I know I messed up. I was scared and stupid. You have to believe me when I say I still love you. I just wanted to feel something again. My heart ached at her words, but the bitterness of her betrayal overshadowed any lingering affection. I wanted to scream at her, to let my anger spill out like a torrent, but deep down I also wanted to understand. I wanted to find a way back to her, to the woman I thought I knew. Yet every time I thought about the lies, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Do you even realize how much you've hurt me? I asked, my voice steady, though it trembled beneath the surface. You think saying I love you erases what you've done. You had the choice to come to me, to talk to me, but instead you chose him. I know, she cried, her hands clenched at her sides. I thought I could keep it a secret, that it wouldn't impact us. I thought it was just harmless fun, but I was wrong. I see that now. I should have talked to you, but I didn't want to lose you. I'm so sorry. Her apology felt empty. The more she spoke, the more I realized that her actions were rooted in something deeper, a dissatisfaction that I hadn't recognized. I took a step back, needing space to think. You were willing to throw away everything we had for a fling. What kind of marriage can survive that? Sarah's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw the girl I had fallen in love with, the one who would dance in the living room and make me laugh until I cried. But those memories felt tainted now, overshadowed by the reality of her infidelity. I'll do anything to make it right, she insisted, her voice softer now, more vulnerable. I'll end things with Brian. I'll cut him out of my life. Just give me a chance to prove that I can be the wife you deserve. Can you really? I challenged her, my tone more defensive than I intended. You think one conversation can fix this? I'm standing here looking at the woman who has shattered my trust. It's not that simple, Sarah. I get that. I know it won't be easy, but I want to fight for us. She pleaded, stepping closer, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. I want to show you that I can change. I can be better. I love you, James. I don't want to lose you. The desperation in her voice struck a chord in me. I felt torn between the desire to salvage our marriage and the reality of what she had done. The emotional turmoil was staggering. I wanted to believe her, wanted to think that we could find our way back from this. But could I ever truly trust her again? Right now, I don't even know if I can look at you without feeling sick. I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. The idea of you and him together, the thought of you laughing with him, sharing intimate moments, it's unbearable. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I understand. I deserve that pain. I did this to us and I'm so sorry, but I need you to understand that it was a mistake. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted this. I could see her vulnerability, her regret, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that her words, while heartfelt, might not be enough to patch the gaping hole in our marriage. My heart felt heavy, the weight of the betrayal pulling me down into despair. I need time, Sarah, I said, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I can't just forgive you because you ask for it. I need to think about what I want. I can't make rash decisions in the heat of the moment. I understand, she said, her voice trembling. Take all the time you need. I'll do everything I can to show you that I'm serious about making things right. Please don't give up on us. Her words hung in the air, and I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I didn't want to give up on my marriage, but I also couldn't ignore the betrayal that lingered like a dark cloud. Right now, I don't even know what making things right means, I said, stepping back to create distance. I need to process this, and I think you do too. The silence that followed was deafening. It felt like the ground beneath us had shifted, and I wasn't sure if we were standing on solid ground anymore. I needed time to think, to assess whether our love could withstand this storm. As I collected my thoughts, a part of me couldn't help but wonder about Brian. Was he really just a fling, or was there something deeper there? I wanted to confront him, to let him know I was aware of what was happening. But would that solve anything? Would that help me find closure? James. Sarah's voice pulled me from my thoughts, and I turned to face her. I know I've hurt you and I can't take it back, but I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Just please don't walk away from me. Her eyes pleaded with me, and in that moment I felt a flicker of the love that had drawn us together in the first place. But love alone couldn't heal the wounds she had inflicted. It couldn't erase the lies and deceit that had entered our lives. I need to think, I replied, my voice steady. I need time to figure out what I want and how to move forward. I can't just pretend like this didn't happen. She nodded, her expression a mixture of relief and pain. Take your time. I'll be here, waiting, hoping you'll find it in your heart to forgive me. I stepped back, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. I had a decision to make, one that would shape the future of our relationship. As I turned to leave the cabin, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. Would love be enough to heal the wounds, or were we destined to drift apart? The drive home was filled with silence, each mile a reminder of the turmoil that lay ahead. I needed to figure out how to reclaim my life, how to navigate the fallout from Sarah's betrayal. And more than anything, I needed to understand if forgiveness was even within my reach. The drive back home was agonizing, each mile feeling like an eternity. I felt like I was in a fog, my mind racing with thoughts of Sarah and Brian, my emotions spiraling out of control. I replayed the confrontation in my head over and over, searching for clarity in the chaos. Could I really forgive Sarah? Did our marriage still have a chance, or was it irrevocably damaged? As I pulled into the driveway, I felt a deep sense of dread wash over me. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a prison, a reminder of the life we had built together that had been shattered. I stepped inside, the familiar surroundings now feeling foreign. The air was thick with tension, and I knew that I had to make some decisions. I spent the next few days in a daze. I went through the motions of my daily routine, work, meals, and chores, while my mind remained fixated on Sarah's betrayal. I found myself oscillating between anger and despair, torn between the love I still felt for her and the profound hurt that came with her infidelity. It was during this time that I began to realize how deeply her actions had affected my sense of self. I had always prided myself on being a loyal and loving husband, but now I felt like a failure. I couldn't help but question my worth. If I had been enough for Sarah, would she have strayed? In my moments of solitude, I began to research infidelity and its impact on relationships. I read articles, forum posts, and personal stories, seeking solace in the knowledge that I wasn't alone in this struggle. I learned that many couples had faced similar challenges, some managing to find their way back to each other while others chose to part ways. It was a mix of hope and despair, but it also helped me start to formulate a plan. I needed to confront my feelings head-on. I decided to meet with a therapist to help me navigate the emotional turmoil. I wanted to understand how to deal with my anger, grief, and confusion surrounding Sarah's actions. It was one of the best decisions I made during this tumultuous time. In our sessions, I spoke openly about my feelings of betrayal and sadness. The therapist listened patiently, guiding me through the emotions that felt so overwhelming. I learned that it was okay to feel angry, that my pain was valid, and that I deserved to take the time to heal. It was a relief to voice my feelings without judgment, to be able to process everything that had happened. As the weeks went by, I found myself growing stronger, more resolute in my thoughts. I realized that I could no longer remain in limbo. I needed to make a decision about my future, whether to fight for my marriage or to walk away. I also recognized that if I chose to stay, it would require monumental effort from both Sarah and me. After several sessions, I began to formulate a plan for how I wanted to approach Sarah. I would agree to meet her again, but this time, it would be under different circumstances. I wanted to lay everything out on the table, my feelings, my expectations, and the necessary steps we would need to take if we were to salvage our marriage. I called Sarah and asked her to meet me at a neutral location, a nearby coffee shop that we used to frequent. I could hear the relief in her voice when she agreed, but I also sensed a level of anxiety. I knew she was concerned about what I would say. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. As I walked into the coffee shop, I spotted her sitting at a table in the corner, her hands fidgeting with the napkin in front of her. She looked up as I approached, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "James," she said softly, her eyes searching mine. "Thank you for meeting me." I sat down, taking a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Sarah. I wanted to talk about what happened and where we go from here." Her gaze dropped to the table and I could see the shame etched on her face. "I know I messed up and I can't tell you how sorry I am. I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I did what I did." "I'm glad to hear that," I replied, forcing myself to stay calm. "But I need to be honest with you. I can't just forget what happened. It's going to take time, effort, and a commitment from both of us if we're going to move forward." Her eyes widened and I could see the fear in her expression. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes, James. I love you and I want to fix this. I can't imagine my life without you." I nodded, trying to hold back my own emotions. "If we're going to make this work, we need to establish some boundaries. I want you to cut all ties with Brian. No more communication, no more secrets." "Of course," she said earnestly, her voice shaking. "I promise I'll do it. I'll block him on everything. I've already started thinking about how to mend things between us." "Good," I said, feeling a sense of relief. "But I also need you to understand that trust has been broken. It's not something that can be easily repaired. We need to rebuild that foundation, and it's going to take time." Sarah nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back, I swear. I'll go to counseling with you if that's what it takes." "Counseling would definitely be a step in the right direction," I said, feeling a flicker of hope. "We need to communicate better and understand where things went wrong. I want to work on this, but we both need to be committed to the process." She reached out and took my hand, and I felt a rush of warmth. "I'm committed, James. I'll do anything to show you how serious I am. I love you, and I'm willing to fight for us." As I looked into her eyes, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had once loved so deeply. I realized that while the road ahead would be arduous, it was not necessarily a lost cause. The journey toward rebuilding our marriage would be filled with challenges, but I was willing to take the first step, if she was too. "Let's take this one day at a time," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "We have a long way to go, but I believe we can find a way to reconnect if we both put in the effort." We finished our conversation, discussing our feelings and creating a plan for moving forward. It was the first time in weeks I felt a glimmer of hope for our future. We both knew it wouldn't be easy, but we were finally on the same page, committed to rebuilding and healing. As I left the coffee shop, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. I wasn't naive enough to think everything had been resolved, but for the first time since discovering Sarah's affair, I felt a sense of possibility. We had a long way to go, but together, we could start rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. I was finally ready to embrace the journey ahead, no matter how difficult it might be. In the weeks that followed the confrontation in the coffee shop, Sarah and I began to navigate the rocky terrain of rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy. Every day was a challenge, a delicate balance of hope and fear. We committed to attending couples therapy together, and I found solace in the fact that we were taking concrete steps toward healing, even if the road was littered with emotional landmines. In therapy, we uncovered layers of communication issues that had festered for years. It became clear that our busy lives had created distance, and while I had focused on my work, Sarah had felt neglected and isolated. Conversations that should have been had were avoided, and in that silence, her feelings had morphed into poor choices. It didn't justify her actions, but it helped me understand how we had arrived at such a painful juncture. As we unpacked our past, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the trust that had been shattered, but relief that we were finally addressing the issues that had plagued our marriage. In those sessions, Sarah was open, vulnerable, and genuinely remorseful. I could see how deeply she regretted her choices, and it stirred something within me, a desire to forge ahead, to rekindle the bond we once shared. During one particularly impactful therapy session, the therapist asked us to focus on our individual needs and desires moving forward. We were tasked with writing down what we wanted from each other and what we needed to feel secure in our marriage. As I sat there, pen in hand, I realized that I wanted more than just a return to normalcy. I wanted a stronger connection, a new foundation built on honesty, communication, and shared goals. When we shared our lists, it felt like a breakthrough. Sarah expressed her need for my attention and affection, and I articulated my desire for transparency and reassurance. I realized that we were both committed to making changes, and that acknowledgement marked the beginning of a new chapter for us. However, the journey was not without setbacks. There were days when old wounds felt fresh again, moments when I would catch myself spiraling into insecurity and doubt. I would find myself questioning Sarah's commitment, wondering if she truly had severed ties with Brian. The memories of that betrayal haunted me, and I had to consciously remind myself that healing takes time. In therapy, we worked through those emotions, learning to communicate them instead of letting them fester. We practiced active listening, making a point to validate each other's feelings even when it was hard. It was a learning curve, but we started to rebuild the trust that had been fractured. Then came the day that changed everything for me. I stood in front of a mirror, preparing to go out for dinner with Sarah. As I adjusted my tie, I glanced at my reflection and noticed a shift within myself. I no longer felt like the victim of betrayal. Instead, I felt empowered, like I was reclaiming my life. I realized that while Sarah had made a grave mistake, I had the power to choose how I responded and what I wanted for my future. That night, we went to a cozy little restaurant that held fond memories for us. Over candlelight and good food, we shared laughter and stories, slowly peeling away the layers of tension that had settled over us in the months prior. It felt different. There was an undercurrent of something hopeful. A new beginning was forming between us. "James," Sarah said, her eyes shining with sincerity, "I know I hurt you deeply and I can't change the past. But I want you to know that I'm committed to being the partner you deserve. I'm grateful for this chance to rebuild." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words wash over me. "I'm willing to fight for us too, Sarah, but I need you to continue being honest with me. We can't go back to the way things were. We need to keep growing together." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I promise. I want to grow with you. You are my priority now." As we toasted to our newfound commitment, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was a small spark, but it was there. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be without its challenges. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild, and there would be moments of doubt and insecurity. But I also knew that we had a choice, an opportunity to forge a new path together, one based on honesty and mutual respect. Looking back on the tumultuous journey we had traveled, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. It had forced us to confront the cracks in our relationship and presented us with the chance to strengthen our bond in ways we had never imagined. The betrayal, while painful, had opened the door to a deeper understanding of each other and ourselves. As we left the restaurant that evening, hand in hand, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. We were embarking on a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty, yes, but also with hope. I had learned that love can endure, but it requires work, vulnerability, and a commitment to change. Together, we would navigate the complexities of our relationship, emerging stronger and more connected than before. And for the first time in a long time, I felt excited about the future. We were on a journey of rebuilding, and while the scars of the past would remain, they would serve as reminders of our resilience. We could rise from the ashes of betrayal and create a love that was unshakable, a love that could weather any storm. Together,